I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Yes, for right now.
Does anyone, I have a couple of special intentions. Anyone else has a special intention? Anyone from the administration? Okay, thank you. I would like to ask for your prayers for Mr. Willie White, a longtime resident of District 1, also a good friend of the family. Mr. White also happens to be former Councilwoman Wilma White Irving's brother. He passed last Wednesday or Thursday, so I would ask for your prayers for Mr. White and his entire family. My second is for the men and women from New York City who was tragically murdered a couple of days ago by a unfortunate individual for many a reason we will never understand why people do things like this. But our prayers go out to their families, for them, and for everyone in the city of New York and all over the country, that we can stop things like this from happening with the support of the police department, the fire department, EMS, all of the men who do their job to stop this, and for whatever we can do also. I ask for your prayers. Thank you. Councilman Moreno, please lead us in the prayer.
Let us bow our heads and remember, and let us bow our heads and ask for God's blessings. O God, from whom all power comes, by whose divine will all must abide, we thank you for our civil liberties and freedom, for all of our opportunities and privileges. We beg of you to bless, assist, and enlighten our newly appointed council member, Kelly Hand. May she prove worthy of the confidence placed in her by this appointment. May she be just and upright in her thinking, honest in all her actions, and ever be guided by a true conscience in the legislation she proposes and votes upon. Forgive us all our mistakes, selfish tendencies, and help us prepare by our good deeds for eternal union with you through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Councilman Wilmot, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum this evening. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes of the regular council meeting of October 19th, 2017. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. Item 2A is a resolution granting an alcoholic beverage permit to Friends of Rivertown on November 25th and 26th, December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 8th, 9th, 10th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 29th, and 30th at Kenner City Park, being property owned by the City of Kenner. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 2046-17, Rotary Club of Kenner Foundation to hold a public gathering on December 3rd from 5 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for the purpose of a run and walk at Laketown, Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3B is application number 2053-17, American Legion Kenner Post 377 to hold a public gathering on November 17, 2017 from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for the purpose of a flag disposal service at the American Legion Hall at 3740 Florida Avenue in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3C is application number 2054-17, Knights of Peter Clavier to hold a public gathering on July 14, 2018 from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. for the purpose of a state picnic at Veterans Park in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3D is application number 2055-17. The City of Kenner holds a public gathering on November 25, 2017 from December 3rd through December 30th, 2017 for the purpose of a Christmas village at Kenner City Park in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 4 is correspondence, reports from the mayor, CAO, and department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, a report from Mayor Zahn.
Mayor Zahn, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Council Chairman. I got a few things tonight. Our October sales tax, the numbers come in for the month of October, which actually reflects August sales. Overall taxes collected, unfortunately, were down by 1.3%. However, the good news, and this keeps consistent, Esplanade Mall kind of picked that up a little bit for us because they were up by 3.8%. Both these numbers reflect the numbers from this time of year last year. So as we going down citywide, sometimes we go down, sometimes we go up. We actually keep going up, or at least staying stable at the Esplanade Mall. So Councilman Klein, as you and Councilman DeFrancis and Councilman Wilmot and myself here, that, you know, the Esplanade Mall seems to be in decline, the numbers don't reflect that. So I'm not saying that the mall is perfect. What I'm saying is the numbers reflect that the mall is moving forward. I do think it has a lot to do with the movie theater. I do think that. I do think when that new development happens by the old movie theater, we're going to see an improvement. And we continue, you know this, and so do the two at-larges, we continue to work very closely with the mall operators, their management, to make sure we move ahead. We had some things that have happened in the last few weeks since we met. Of course, we had Trunk or Treat at Mus Bernalillo in Councilman Klein's district. I want to thank Councilman Klein for taking part of that, Councilman DeFrancis. I know some of y'all were busy. Former Councilman Brian Brennan was there. Our Councilman of District 5 at the time, newly elected District 4 Councilman Dominic Passata, had a group there representing him. And also we had the Chief of Police and myself. We had a lot of kids, a lot of families. My staff was there with me. I want to thank my staff for being there with me. My family was there with me. I actually had 2 cars set up to make sure we got enough out. The kids were happy. It was cold. It was very cold, but they still came out. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the movie because that screen will blow. So if y'all get calls on that, if you've gotten calls on it, it was a safety reason. It was too windy that night. But I don't think anybody had a bad time. They had a haunted house and other things, other activities going on, and we had some first place, second place on costume contests in different categories. So it was a great night, and I know y'all being there, y'all saw that. We've also had another issue that's popped up, and I think this was more of a kind of like a presence more than anything else, and I'm going to address it tonight because we've addressed it on social media, and we're going to address it again tomorrow morning. And we've been working through this to get to this point so I could report it to you all tonight. A Blessed Mother statue popped up on Powell Boulevard on one of our concrete slabs in District 3. While I have no issues with that, some people do have issues with it. We were in the discussions of what we were going to, proper placement of it. I went onto social media to actually inform the public, thank the person or group that gave it to us, and to make sure that it wasn't, if it was a gift, that's fine, but there's a proper place for it. If it was stolen from someone's yard, I wanted to put it on social media so we could actually reach out to the residents of the city of Kenner or Jefferson Parish and say, look, we appreciate this, but there's proper places for it. In doing so, we were contacted by numerous churches, Catholic churches, other churches too, saying there's a proper place for religious statues, and I do believe in that. When we were discussing on Monday morning where we're going to actually place it, what church, who was going to take possession of it, we had a special phone call, actually an email, but she left a phone number, and I spoke to the lady. She lives on David Drive. Her name is Miss Shiro. She actually reached out through email and said, and it was a very touching story. She said, I'm a heart patient. I've been going through a lot. When I opened up my gates, and I can't remember what morning it was, when I opened up my gates and I saw the Blessed Mother statue, she saw it as a sign. And she reached out to me and said, I know these are things that sometimes, unfortunately, become controversial with government. But since it's there and the people of Kenner and on Powell Boulevard have enjoyed it, I would like to actually take possession if no one has claimed it. I went out there with Louis Lynn, also Chris Fortunata, and Mark Glorioso on Tuesday, because I had spoken to her Tuesday morning, and she actually offered for it to go on her property so that the people of District 3 and also of Kenner on Powell Boulevard can continue to see the Blessed Mother statue. I have no issues with that. I actually personally purchased, and I think they call it like a grotto, to actually encase her in. I paid for it. The city of Kenner did not pay for it. Look, I'm a Catholic. I'm going to do things like that. I have no problem doing that. And I've reached out to her and I've asked, And I think we have one of the Catholic churches coming tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to invite everyone from the council and also our chief and the people of Kenner to come and properly place a religious statue where it should go. So I'm going to stand behind that. I hope the council stands behind me on that. You know, there is discrepancy sometimes with the public property. I get that. But I do think it needs to be on Powell Boulevard because that's where someone placed it. It could be a sign, I don't know. But I'm going to take it as for my Catholic faith that we should properly place any religious statue, particularly the Blessed Mother, in the proper place where she wants to go on someone's individual property. So please join us tomorrow morning if you can to move her from the pad that she's on with a priest that can actually bless the spot and put her on Ms. Shiro's property, her property on Powell Boulevard. And I do think the people of Kenner will be pleased with continuing to see the gift that was given, but now it's going to go to Ms. Shiro and her property. And I think her story enough, being a heart patient, it touches me enough, and I hope it touches every one of you all, that y'all would support that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate, your donation as it relates to that. If you could give the time
9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
and the address, location.
So it's it's hard to give an address, and I don't want to give the lady's address, but
No.
it's also kind of tough to give it because it's on David Drive, which Powell Boulevard don't have any addresses. So it's the second U-turn going toward the lake.
Second.
Okay.
You're not going to miss it. A lot of residents have dropped flowers off by the statue, and hoping that we move it over here, they'll continue to do that for Ms. Shiro. And hearing this story tonight, and we will put it on Facebook and social media on how we properly took care of the situation that arose in the city of Kenner.
Right. And obviously, no one has claimed to be there, so we don't have to worry
No
about
one's claimed. I think someone thought that this would be, a proper place for something like this, and I'm not saying that it is or it isn't. I'm just saying that those pads, as you all know, that y'all did this before I got here, those pads are dedicated in a 2030 plan to specific art pieces by the Shanes. So I don't want to stop that movement, but I do think we have to handle this properly in the right way for everyone involved.
Thank you. Councilwoman DeFrances, was this?
Well, the first thing you already asked for was the address, but I have one small comment. I want to personally thank Mr. Solomon on behalf of the city of Kenner. You know, that theater, there were so many reasons why he should have stepped back. His mother died during that time. His father died during that time. There were so many other reasons I won't even go into. And yet, every time when we spoke, he promised, I will keep my word to the people of Kenner, and he kept his word. And as you just mentioned, Mayor, I agree with you. I think it's one of the reasons why the mall is doing well. So I just wanted to personally thank him for keeping his word to the people of the city.
I agree. I think it's those leather seats that recline.
I think you're
Those
right.
are nice. Those are very nice. And I don't know if anybody else has a comment.
I don't see any more lights up, so I think,
Council Chairman, if you wouldn't mind, do you mind if we have 3 updates on specific things going on from 3 different directors or 3 different, not all directors, but 3 employees of the city of Kenner? Mr. George Bodie with General Services, Mr. Adam Campo, our internal auditor, and also Mr. Mike Entz with some very good news for your district. Do you
fantastic.
mind
Yeah, I'm sure we all would want to be updated on that.
if we can have George Bodie come up first?
Yes, Mr. Bodie. Mr. Bodie, if you can give your name and department again, sir, we'd appreciate that.
My name is George Bodie. I'm Director of City Services. And I'd just like to give y'all a few things that we've been conducting in the city since we've started this new department. I found out that we have 76 buildings owned by the city. I think we worked on all of them already. But we're going to do what we can to make everything like it's supposed to be. In the past 119 days, we've closed out 401 work orders, which is a pretty good count. It adds up to about 3.58 work orders per day. And at this time, we have 93 that's open, and we're working on them also. I'm also in the process of getting inventory for all air conditioners that we're going to have to eventually replace or add what we have to do. I think Councilman Reno brought this up a while back about the Freon in a couple of years. We're gonna have to really do some changes. The way it looks right now, at this stage, we would need about $650,000 right now just to replace the ones that has to be done. We're replacing them as we go along, so maybe by the time it gets here, it won't be quite that bad, but, you know, I'll be keeping y'all informed of what we need to do, because I don't want to see y'all in 2 years sitting in a hot office building. We're also in the process of getting all the footage that's involved with a lot of this stuff, making sure that, that everybody has the proper tools for insurance-wise, for moving buildings around, moving offices around. And I would like to say at this time that we'll do whatever we can to make a better life for y'all and for the city of Kenner people, and do whatever we can. And if y'all have any questions or anything, just let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Bodie. I have a question for Councilman Reno. I'm going to defer to his expertise. Councilman Reno, are there any state or federal regulations as relate to transferring over to the new type of Freon or equipment?
No, Council President, what it is refrigerant 22 will no longer be available. Back in the 80s, the United States, along with many other countries around the world, signed an international agreement called the Montreal Protocol, and it eliminated any chemicals that affect our ozone layer. The last one to be totally eliminated is refrigerant 22, which is commonly found in many air conditioning units. All new units that have been manufactured since 2010 have the new refrigerant in it. And if you have an old system, like we have many in Kenner that are operating under 22, in January 1st, 2020, you'll no longer be able to get that product at all. It's not going to be available anywhere. It can't be shipped into the United States. It can't be sold. It can't be manufactured, period. So you'll get to a situation where you have a unit with a Freon leak and you have no refrigerant to put in, so you have, at that time, make the change. The new refrigerant is not compatible with the old equipment. So that's why Mr. Bodie said you're probably looking at $600,000+ if you had to replace everything right now. So that's basically where we are. And I brought it to the administration's attention under Mayor Mike Yenny that, that they need to make sure that they look into that, because it's going to affect somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
You got till 2020, though.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thanks for the expertise. I really appreciate that. Mr. Bodie, I don't see any more lights, so thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Campo, name and department, please.
Adam Campo, Department of Internal Audit. So after the creation of the department, I started looking into items that are typically associated with theft or fraud. An example of this is government-owned and issued credit cards. They're generally a hotbed for fraud. Given the current situation in New Orleans, I thought it'd be relevant to include this as a specific detail, even though the audit I conducted on this issue lacks any semblance of excitement or intrigue. This was by far the easiest audit I've ever personally conducted, since the city of Kenner has no city-owned credit cards. As you know, no department heads, no council member, not even the mayor himself has a city-owned credit card. Another big item generally related to theft is fuel. Currently, the Director of Fleet Management, Ronnie Vitalero, and the Assistant Director, Sue Renata, and I are working to update their policies related to tracking and reporting fuel to ensure that this does not become an issue for the city. The auditing department has investigated multiple individual personnel issues as well as individual departments. The following are some of the limited highlights of the past, current, and potential future audits. The goal of the auditing department was and still is to conduct an audit of every city department. As part of the process, shortly after the creation of the department, we began to look at the Department of Community Development. We conducted a financial audit as well as a compliance audit. Part of what my department does is to make recommendations and aid in their implementation. Since I currently lack a staff, this has largely been a collaborative effort with other directors, assistant directors, and employees pitching in to get the job done. With the assistance of Mike Wetzel, the finance director, Doug Dote, the director of emergency management, the entire legal department, Lee Russell and Ed Rapier in particular, Mike Entz, the current interim director of community development, and every employee in the community development department, we were able to identify gaps where fraud or noncompliance did exist or could have existed. We were also able to implement policies and continue to do so, which make it far less likely for fraud or theft to exist in the department. The audit regarding community development led me in the direction of the Kenner Housing Authority. Again, through a collaborative effort, we were able to unravel a very messy situation. We made recommendations to their board, all of which were adopted. And currently, the board is still implementing policies to ensure that that type of situation does not ever happen again. Working with the purchasing department, currently their director, Teresa Nevels, and assistant director, Susan Ferran, and one of their employees, Kirk Savoy, we are just now beginning to audit the inventory and inventory controls. Ken Maricoli, the director of recreation, has offered his assistance of his IT employee, Tim O'Flean, and together we will be looking into the possibility of improvements like RFID inventory management systems. RFID, for anyone that is not aware, stands for radio frequency identification. This would be a technological step above the current standard of barcode scanning and light years ahead of our current manual tag and track system. An audit was also conducted of the Kenner Fire Department. The audit we conducted resulted in the termination of the fire chief. And due to the potential for an appeal of that decision, I really can't get into any specifics at this time. The interim fire chief, Ryan Bergeron, Leon Contavaspi, the clerk of court, as well as multiple fire department employees were instrumental in conducting this audit. In closing, I just want to say that I'm extremely grateful to you, the council, for creating the department, the mayor for recommending the department, and for every individual that's helped us with any of the audits that we've done.
Thank you, Mr. Campo. I just want to address I had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Klesse, one of the board members for the Housing Authority last night, and I look forward to being a bigger part than what I've had in the past with the Housing Authority. I think there's a number of, obviously, properties in District 1, and it's something I think I can assist in. And I look forward to her and I are going to meet along with the mayor to address some concerns. So we look forward to that. But Ms. Fauché, if you could, because there's the perception that the city of Kenner, we run, and there's a separation between the city of Kenner and the Housing Authority. If you can let everyone know, because we get questions all the time, why did you let this happen? Why are we not doing this? But we're not the people who regulate that. But it's hard to explain that to people when it's sitting right in the middle of Kenner. So if you don't mind, could you give us a little more insight on that?
It's very difficult to explain that sometimes because it's a conglomerate. It is a state-created, federally funded, and locally board-nominated agency. So what happens is it is largely regulated by HUD because most of the funding for the agency comes from HUD. But it's created by the state legislature. The city, the mayor is identified as the person who chooses the board members. He's also the person who's delegated to remove for cause. In connection with this particular audit, we spoke with a number of HUD officials in Washington, D.C., and they noted that it is incumbent upon the local agency, the local government, while you don't run it, if you're aware there are problems, you are obligated to get in there and ferret it out. So we recognize the fact that we don't have total jurisdiction there, and we tried to do what was necessary to identify the problems, make recommendations to the board to rectify the problems, and then we stepped away. So right now we're here as resources only. They have their own legal consulting. They have their own operational consulting. They have 4 of the 5 board members. They still need a 5th board member. I have heard at least that they are actively pursuing that 5th board member, and there's a number of initiatives they have, including I think they are rehabbing or renovating the old office to move back into the old office. They're leaving the building they're in now.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. So there's a number of initiatives. I think this particular board is, it's very exciting to talk to them because they seem to be dedicated to trying to do some turnaround of the housing stock that's associated. But we do not, you council members and the mayor and the administration, none of us have any control over the day-to-day operations of what's going on there. We certainly are interested in hearing about it, if there's something we can do to help or support them, but we are not responsible for them. And the state is largely the one responsible, though they often defer to HUD because HUD is the funding authority.
Yes, and thank you for the explanation. And I think the more we say it, the more I think people will understand the separation. Obviously, the mayor is, from his position, is, like you said, responsible. If he knows something is not being accurately done, then he has to step in and to address it. So going forward, we look forward to ensuring, because this is something important to a lot of people who need the assistance for them and their families. So this is something, as a council, as administration, we look forward to, I guess, righting the ship, I guess, for lack of a better word, for us to move forward. And we look forward to all of our assistance wherever it may come from.
And wanted to make particular note, Ms. Fortunato reminded me, we do not select the director. The director is selected by the board. So as many of us recall, when the board was falling apart, one of the biggest issues was the executive director and activities by the executive director and purported misrepresentations by the executive director. That is never someone selected by the mayor or the council or anyone with the city. That is a selection made by the board. So our obligation is to vet, and I say the mayor's obligation is to vet and nominate and appoint the proper group and try to provide any support we can. If we're aware of problems, we get in there and look, but otherwise we step away and let them do their business.
Right, and something as simple as the tot lot, which is across the street, I'm sure Mr. Maricoli have had to deal with this, that people believe that we, the city of Kenner, are the owners and we're supposed to cut the grass, but that's not. But because it's so close to the gym, you try saying, well, no, that's not. But, I think more and more we talk about it, I think people will get a better understanding of that property and all of the properties going forward. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Campo.
Thank you.
Council Chairman, the last person is Mr. Michael Ince. I just want to say thank you to you all for supporting these two, not departments, one department and also one other position, because as you see, it's paying off. So the council's support on this is appreciated by the administration.
Thank you.
Mike Ince is not something I asked for. It was already here, but actually you're gonna. Not that I'm complaining. That didn't sound too good, but I can't take credit for asking
but we're
for
going to
that.
ignore that.
I'll take credit for the other two. This is something that he's been here for a while, and he's here to prove the work that he's doing is actually paying off, particularly in your district.
Yes, we've had a long-lasting relationship, and hopefully it's going to be longer to more improvements.
I think
Mr.
you'll like
Ince,
this.
your name and department again, for the record.
Yes. Mike Ince, Interim Director, Department of Community Development. So as the mayor said, I do have some very exciting news that I hope all y'all are just as excited as I am. Same thing with Jay Abear. This is an initiative that really came out of the planning department that we just now were able to secure. So we have secured some grant funding to stabilize the roof of Old Kenner High School through some grant funding. Looks to be around $400,000. This actually came out of another application that we had out that we were awarded from, that we decided to amend after we did a more thorough review of the estimates that we had on it and just some other issues that we had within the grant package that we really were not comfortable with. So we went back. It's actually done through the Governor's Office of Homeland Security. It's called the Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant. And I think the most important thing to remember about this grant funding that we secured is it's going to be at little to no cost to the city due to our fact that the study that we had done in the planning department that was funded by the National Trust to do a structural report and feasibility study, we can actually use as in-kind match, as well as staff salaries that went into putting that study into place, as well as the time we spent applying for this grant application. So this is going to be very limited cost to us, which we're definitely excited about because it is a large-scale project, but this is a key part for us securing future funding to get that building rehabilitated. So I can't, express any more about how excited we are about it. We do have roof issues with it, which everybody is aware of. But within that original study that we had conducted, we did have an item in there that went in and included all of the interiors of the property. So all the crown molding, All the interiors have been cataloged, so when the property does get renovated, it will include all the original fixtures inside of it, which is a part of the Department of Interior standards for an historic property like that. Like I was mentioned before, the planning department got that on the National Register, which is a huge portion of getting any kind of historic tax credits or securing any potential federal funding for it. So, you know, with that, like I said, this is a key part for us to secure any future funding to get that building back up.
Well, thank you, and that's important. Excuse me, future, because obviously we are appreciative of the grant, but it's going to take a little bit more to put it back in an operable position for it to be, you know, really used for the city of Kenner in a positive way. That's a whole different conversation once we start getting there, but I'm sure we'll look forward to those conversations with you. But thanks for, Councilwoman DeFranchis has a question.
Actually, no, I want to make a comment. Ms. Fauché smiled at me and we actually made eye contact because she knows how long I've spoken to her. I have been pushing to do something about that building. I was part of the council when we put it on the National Historical Registry. I think it's one of the most beautiful buildings in Kenner, and it would have been an absolute shame if we had lost that building. And I can tell you, Councilman Mark Johnson took me through that building with a flashlight, and it was scary. To be honest with you, I thought we'd go through the floor and end up on, you know, on the subfloor. But nevertheless, it's an absolutely wonderful building. It's a building, as we said, on the National Historical Registry. And the fact that we can finally do something to secure that it doesn't, you know, continue to deteriorate at no cost to the citizens of Kenner makes it even more special. And I know how long the planning department, and you were part of the planning department for a long time. I know how long the planning department has been working on it. Jay and I have had many, am I right, Jay, conversations about that building? And as I said, and even with the current administration, so I am probably as delighted as you are, or more so, than we were finally able to get a grant to do something about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dance. Any more, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry, that's it.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Item 5 is acceptance and rejection of bids requiring an expenditure of less than $5,000. We have none. Item 6 is change orders requiring an expenditure of less than $5,000. We have none. Item 7 is acceptance of committee findings for final passage. We have none. Item 8 is re-subdivision ordinances for final passage. Item 8A is summary ordinance number 12,304. An ordinance approving the plan of re-subdivision of lots 9 through 14 and lots 35 through 40 into lots 9A, square 41, Highway Park subdivision, City of Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, which lots are owned by O'Reilly Automotive Stores Incorporated.
Motion by Councilman Reyno, second by Councilwoman DeFranchis to accept the consent agenda. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. At this time, Mr. Chairman, we've received a request to change the order of business to take item 18A at this juncture in the meeting. If I could get a motion and a second to change the order?
Motion by Councilwoman DeFranchis, second by Councilman Wilmot to change the order of business. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 18A, at the request of the city attorney, an executive session to discuss the following litigation matter: Kenner Firefighters Association, Local 1427, IAFF et al. Versus the City of Kenner 24th Judicial Court docket number 687-19, Division O. If I could get a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session, please.
Motion by Councilwoman DeFranchis, second by Councilman Wilmot to adjourn. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0 for executive session.
Yeah, okay. What we're going to do is we're going to move on it in seconds and speak on it, so Mr. Pavlich can come up here, okay? Mayor and I both stated that we all have been working on it. And they have, in the 2 weeks since the deferral, we've worked with them, and they have already done a lot of this. So it's a moot point. They have cooperated with us, even though it was deferred, okay? So it's a moot point, and I'm going to pull it. If she says I can't, she thinks I can, only then I would indefinitely defer it. But it needs to be me, because I'm the one with the resolution. And I'm just
Is this with that?
this is what they've done and are doing, yes.
I don't see anything north of,
That's a fail, like.
south of, south
All
of
of it,
Veterans.
I made sure that they did all of it.
Serial number of the outdoor.
Okay, so a different
Bainbridge,
street.
Crestview, yes, see,
You're going, oh, this is great.
University City,
But the Nordic one.
south of Armstrong International.
Okay.
That's
that
your
would be-
area, okay? So all of that was done, I worked on it, made sure, I said the whole city needed it.
He actually brought me in.
The mayor did the same thing,
Okay.
so it came from both of us.
Manufacturer.
So we'll see, either it's gonna be
It's
pulled
either-
or you're gonna move to
or I-
defer it
or I- But either way, it
indefinitely.
needs to be done.
Do I need to call him back?
I'm just afraid.
Well, I told him, I said, I don't know what you could possibly, I'm sorry, I had no idea. All right, now I feel terrible.
It is not legislation.
No, you won't. I mean, I have your name down here, so you'll be the person. who-
But I mean,
Sorry, Lee, I didn't know.
talking,
And the other thing
stand should not be the one to pull it or do
most
it
all
or
manufacturers,
defer
No,
it.
it'll be you.
I know, I handle American
Like lease
Standard.
purchase, or is it?
Yeah, American Standard Train Assistant Company. So American Standard and Train have what they call. So you release it, and at the end of 5 years, you pay $1. And you own it. Now, the good part about that, the bad part is interest on the leases are high. Blessing to that is the fact that when they lease it, they want you to lease it with the fact that you want it. So now for 5 years, you have no expense. So what you do is you look at the expense that you expended on a particular property in air conditioning in the last 5 years, and you say, well, we've spent out $25,000 on this particular building over the past. That's an offset your lease payment. Because now for the next 5 years, you have a zero. Well,
So we're gonna get started again in about 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
I'm making sure that it's all right.
Oh, yeah, he said, what he wanted to do.
I don't care who does it.
Good.
Okay, I have to do different, she said, once we talk on it. Okay, so at the very end. After we talk, and Mr. Pavlich and the mayor talk, and I'm gonna indefinitely defer. Is that good? Either one, either you or Greg. Greg said, you wanna do it?
it doesn't matter to me.
You wanna do it?
It's fine.
Okay.
Whatever he.
Gregory, he said he's willing if,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. What happened to? Is she gone? Or she?
no, she's still here somewhere, but she couldn't come in the back, I guess.
No, I think she went to her reception.
Oh, she went to her reception, I
She had
didn't know
all of
that.
her family. She's got a,
She left? I don't know.
no, she had all her family.
Louis.
Oh, I
Marie.
know, but she didn't.
Kelly Lee?
I know, but you can't make the family wait.
No, I don't care.
Yeah.
She's fine. I just didn't
No,
know.
I think.
He asked, and I said I didn't know.
Natalie, y'all ready?
Natalie, it's going to be at the end after we speak. At the very end, I'm going to indefinitely defer.
Okay, we're getting ready to get started again. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Under the public appearance agenda this evening, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding Resolution B 16811, a resolution calling a public hearing on September 7, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 2309 Kenner Avenue in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. Mr. Chairman, we've received a request for a two-meeting deferral this evening.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Segura for a two-meeting deferral. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 9B is a public hearing regarding Resolution B 16812, a resolution calling a public hearing on October 5, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 317 Clay Street in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Mr. Walters, do you have a presentation, sir?
If I could get a motion and a second to open your hearing, sir?
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Reno to open public hearing. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. You're now on the public hearing. The Code Enforcement Department has a presentation this evening.
Council, we brought this before y'all back on October 5th, and the property owners requested some time to be able to deal with and try to demo this property themselves. As of this time, there still has never been a demo permit filed for it. So I'm going to present again this structure, which was actually brought before y'all in July of 2008 for the same purpose, with additional times continuing to be given for the family to either rehabilitate, renovate, or demolish this house. This structure is a one-story, single-family elevated house on piers. Bears a municipal address of 317 Clay Street. Property is owned by Ira Smith, Charles Smith Jr., and Rachel Stevenson. On May 18, 2016, it was determined the property located at 317 Clay Street was unsafe and dangerous under the building codes for the City of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57 et al. Of the Code of Ordinance for the City of Kenner. On July 21st, 2017, notice was sent, certified mail, to the property owners, advising them of the property and building violations. Notice was sent to the property owner at the above referenced address, as well as addresses found via search engines. The City of Kenner also contacted the services of an engineer, and is noted by the report of the engineer retained by the City of Kenner, who provided the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment. Windows and doors are boarded, electricity disconnected, sections of the asphalt shingles are missing at the front of the structure, numerous sections of the soffit and roof decking shows evidence of water damage and rot. Portions of the exterior siding having fallen off throughout the entire exterior of the structure, thus exposing the framing members to the elements. Based upon the report of the engineer, the structure is a serious public hazard, and we recommend that the city take the steps necessary to declare it a public nuisance and have it abated by demolition.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Before we close the public hearing, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this particular property? Seeing none, motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Reno to close public hearing. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0 to close your hearing.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Reno to accept. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 9C is a public hearing regarding Resolution 16813, a resolution calling a public hearing on October 5, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 2611 Salem Street in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Klein to open the public hearing. Council, please vote. Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Mr. Walters, do you have another presentation?
Yes, sir. This structure in question is a one-story, single-family, pile-supported foundation bearing the municipal address of 2611 Salem Street. Property is owned by Mr. Charles E. Miller. On June 21st, 2017, it was determined that the property located at 2611 Salem Street was unsafe, dangerous under the building codes for the city of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57 of the Code of Ordinance for the city of Kenner. On July 21st, 2017, notice was sent by certified mail to the property owner advising him of the property violation. Utilities have been disconnected. Since that time, we have spoken with Mr. Miller and on several occasions regarding his intention to have the property repaired or demolished.
Mine is,
He has not yet applied for a permit to proceed with the process.
is 90.
It is noted in the report of the engineer retained by the city of Kenner provided the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment. Portions of the exterior wooden siding have fallen off, thus exposing the exterior sheathing and causing it to degrade. Section of the western exterior stud wall have decayed due to missing siding. Soffit is missing along the rear of the structure. A number of windows and doors have been boarded up. Front porch is overgrown with vegetation and has collapsed. Based on a report of the engineer, it is recommended that the structure is a severe safety issue to the public and is in immediate danger of collapse due to reasons of inadequate maintenance and is hereby declared to be a public nuisance. It is further recommended that the structure must be immediately abated. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you look at the pictures and see this residence, it's only been a couple weeks since Mr. Miller lived in that residence. And during one of our visits to the residence, code inspectors meeting with him, Mr. Miller actually fell through the floor of the residence. So I think that says enough. I know Mr. Miller is here, and I don't know if he wants, I know he put the property up for sale and is moving out, but it needs to be torn down.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. And before we close the public hearing, is there anyone here, Mr. Miller or anyone, who would like to, yes, sir?
Is going to indefinitely defer.
But you want to speak, Mr. Miller? Could you come up and give your name and address, please? Now, would it be easier for him to speak at that microphone than to go to that?
Yes, he can. Yes, he can.
Mr. Miller,
it's on. And it's on.
I'm sorry, I just want to say, I did not fall through the floor. I didn't even.
Mr. Miller, we're going to hear. Could you just give your name and address, please, sir? Right here. Name and address.
Charles Miller, 2611 Salem Street.
Thank you. Now, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, I did not fall through the floor. I didn't even go back there with him. I don't know where that comes from. They said the electricity was bad. It was completely rewired in 98. It's up to code. The Kenner passed the code permits and whatnot. I admit the house has to be taken down. I'm disabled and no longer able to take care of it. And I had a contract to sell it for last month. That fell through, but I've got two possibles right now. I just want to say, I didn't fall through the floor.
Well, thank you, sir. Now, I'm glad you came to clear it up, but I'm glad that you are in agreement that the property has to be taken down, and you understand our position as city officials and administration, the mayor, that from a safety and from a liability, and particularly for Mr. Miller, for your safety. I mean, normally my personal opinion, I never get involved in this. I'll let the professionals, Mr. Walters and everyone else. But I really do believe this is not a safe place, sir, for you to be living in.
I know. I never thought I'd wind up like this.
And I'm sorry to hear that. And hopefully you can get some support to be able to assist you. And we have a community development department. We have a community service department. We have a food bank. We have a number of options that if you have not heard about it before you leave, there are a number of people here that you can talk to. The mayor can tell you who they are, and they may be able to assist you, but this is a situation that I'm sure, and because a lot of your neighbors care about you, I've gotten a number of calls saying that, you know, they feel for you, they understand your circumstances, but it is best that we go ahead and take care of this, along with Mr. Walters and his guys. So it's not anything personal. It's something I think we are doing for the betterment for yourself and the community.
Oh, I know. I just never thought I'd wind up like this.
I understand, Mr. Miller. And like I said, there are individuals here that you can speak with if we may be able to offer some support. All of us up here also, so you can get our contact information and call us and get some information today. We would really, really want you to do that.
I have pursued all the options over the last couple of years. There are a whole lot of catch-22s in these programs to help rehabilitate houses. My main gripe was that the rehabilitation process, the rules are impossible because you have to have all manner of insurance on the house to be qualified. But if have all that insurance, your house has to be in perfect condition, which I wouldn't need help if it was. It's a catch-22. It was supposed to last 1 month. That was, what, a year and a half ago?
And like I said, before you leave, I would hope that you would talk to someone, because there may be opportunities that you have not gotten information on. So at least you can at least get that information before you leave here today, and to be able to support you as we move forward. But you know, like I said, again, for all of us, if I may take the liberty to speak, you know, we understand, we are sorry of your situation. If anything that we can do, we will, as an administration and as a city department, reach out to help you. But again, I'm going to say, and you agree that we are moving in the right direction on this, Mr. Miller. Thank you, sir.
I know, it'll be sold and demolished at the first possible date.
Thank you, sir. God bless. Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Reno to close the public hearing. Second by Councilman Klein to close the public hearing. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. He can.
Councilman Klein, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Motion
President.
by Councilman Carroll, second by
I
Councilmember
wanted to ask
Klein to
Mr. Miller
approve.
a couple questions.
Lenny, wait.
Okay.
Right.
Well, so,
We're going to, before we vote, I'll give an opportunity. Motion by Councilman Carroll to accept, second by Councilman Klein. So before we vote, Councilman Klein.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Walther would like to speak too. Would you like to speak before the council? Or?
I just want to respond. I met with Mr. Miller earlier and told him that from the time y'all vote on this, it usually takes about 30 days going through all the steps to get to the demo process. I also told him that if he should get a contract on his property to sell, that if he notifies me, I can put off the demo, because whoever buys it's going to have to take it down anyway. That I would give him sufficient time, because they may be able to get a demo cheaper than what it would cost me to do it. Regarding his falling through the floor, that was witnessed by 2 inspectors. I was not there at the time, but they are the ones that reported that to me, that he stepped. They wanted to come into the property to see. They said there was a hole in the roof at the time, and that there was also this problem where he stepped and the floor gave up underneath him. So that was something else I wanted to address.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Walters. And Councilman Klein, before you speak, Mr. Miller, I'm just going to say that obviously there are procedures that we can put in place to extend time, like Mr. Walters said, but you have to communicate with us, let us know going forward, because we're going to give you the length and the extension of the time to get this done. But please, please, please call Mr. Walters or his office to let us know your position going forward. Please, sir. Thank you. Councilman Klein, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask Mr. Miller a couple questions. I guess I can ask Mr. Walter a question first. Is this the first time that Mr. Miller's been before this council with his property?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Miller, do you have running water in your house?
I turned it off about 2 weeks ago.
What about electricity?
They cut my wire without notice.
How long ago?
They said I would have, I don't know, they said I would have some time, and before I was even hung up on the phone, the wire was cut.
And who cut your electricity off?
The city ordered an emergency disconnect. I talked to Entergy. They couldn't go through for at least 72 hours. While I was on the phone with Entergy, they cut the wire and removed the whole wire from the pole to the house.
Okay. And what about your roof? Does it leak?
It's a brand-new roof after Katrina. It's got no holes in it. I don't know where that comes from.
What progress have you made with trying to either sell it or tear it down?
I had a contract to sell for I think it was the 5th of October, the package sale was supposed to go down, and the guy wanted to delay. We had given him a special discount price because I needed that before.
You can see we had any pictures in here.
And he fell through. He wanted to fall back 2 months, which I don't have that kind of time. I have to get this taken care of.
But do you have the money to pay a contractor to do that?
No, I'm on disability. I'm starving, I'm diabetic. All my insulin was destroyed because they turned off my electricity. They're concerned about my health, but who's concerned if I die of a heat stroke in a house that has no electricity?
Well, how do you expect the contractor to do it if you're not going to pay him?
I don't have the money to pay them.
Okay, all right.
It's all predicated
Does
on
anybody look
the
at
sale
the
of the
pictures?
house. Once that happens, then the money will be available.
Do you have it listed with a real estate agent or anything?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Klein, let me just respond to some of that also. We were in touch with we learned he had a sister and contacted his sister and tried to get her to take him in, and she refuses. The electricity was turned off because of the fire hazard that existed with this house, and it was an emergency the inside of the house. I wish I had pictures of the inside of the house to show y'all as comparing it to the outside of the house. But, and his acknowledgement that the house has to be torn down would not give you the assurance that, that his quality of life was well in this location, even with his diabetes.
I understand his welfare is at risk also. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Klein to approve. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 9D is a public hearing regarding Resolution B16814, a resolution calling a public hearing on November 2nd, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 2735 Kingston Street in Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilwoman DeFranchis to open the public hearing. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. You're now on a public hearing.
Mr. Walters.
Yes, sir. This structure coming up is 2735 Kingston Street. It's actually two separate structures. With the one on the left that you see the vehicle in front of, that is the residence of Mr. and Mrs. Christopher Adams, Jr. The front of the structure that you would notice on the right, that was at some time in the past, Mr. Adams did small engine repairs, and I believe that is what he used as his shop. This is a single-story, pile-supported slab foundation on both of these locations. It only has this one address. Property is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Christopher Adams, Jr. On May 16, 2017, it was determined that the properties located here were unsafe and dangerous under the building codes for the city of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57 et al. Of the Code of Ordinances for the city of Kenner. July 25th, 2017, a notice was sent certified mail to the property owners advising them of the properties and building violations, which were received on August 29th, 2017. As of this date, the violations have not been corrected, nor have there been any attempts to comply. City of Kenner also contracted the service of an engineer. It is noted by the report of the engineer retained by the City of Kenner, provided the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment. Both structures are overgrown with vegetation. Large section of exterior sheathing are missing throughout the rear of the structures, thus compromising the lateral stability of the structures. Large sections of roof framing and sheathing are missing at the rear of these structures, thus compromising the lateral stability of the structures. Interior of the north structure, that would be the one you see now, is accessible to the public and is littered with debris. The north roof structure for the rear enclosure addition has collapsed, thus compromising the stability of what is still standing. Soffit is missing at numerous locations throughout both structures, thus allowing moisture and vermin into the attic and interior of the structure. There is evidence of mold and mildew, and you'll see a photo of a ceiling in a minute that is going to show you that mold and mildew throughout the interior of the living structure. That's it now. The interior air quality of both structures make it uninhabitable. Based on the reports of the engineer and opinion of the chief building official, these structures continue to be a public hazard and are in immediate danger of collapse. Furthermore, we recommend that the city take the steps necessary to declare them a public nuisance and have them abated by demolition or brought up to current city codes and ordinance. Now let me add something to this. That structure that you saw with that ceiling, mold and mildew, is still being inhabited by Mr. and Mrs. Christopher Adams, who are both in ill health. Approximately a year ago, City of Kenner, having been involved with trying to help them, we got a Rotary Club to help clean up around the property. Romelli's donated 2 dumpsters for them to put the debris and the vegetation in, and your own James Mohammed lent a bobcat to help clear it out. In that 1 year, what you see is what's continued. If there was a fire at this structure, the 2 inhabitants would die. They are here tonight, and when we visited their residence recently, they advised they were moving out on November 23rd, which I think is every day. But we're recommending that we tear these 2 structures down.
Can I ask for a point of clarification?
Right, I was getting ready to ask Mr. Walters, so just for clarity, it's 2 properties on one lot
2
of,
properties on one lot with the same address.
Okay, that was my question, too.
and are there any utilities, Mr. Walters, that any of the,
They have electric, they have, back when they just visited the other day, Mr. Adams was on his computer with a light to shine up on it so he could see it.
okay. So before we close the public hearing, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak, address the property before we close public hearing?
Rick, did he say that the owners were here?
I'm not sure. He may have said that. That's why I'm asking now. Is there,
Make sure they understand this is their time. I presume that's them sitting over there. I want to make sure they understand this is their time to come talk.
Okay.
sir? Okay, if there is anyone, not only the owners, but anyone else that would like to come up at this time to speak, please come up before we close the public hearing. If not, we're going to proceed to, well, before we do that, I'm just going to say this is another situation that the city of Kenner obviously has participated in trying to support our residents with the funding, with the equipment, with everything, because this is something that we hate having to deal with, all of us. So we reach out to support, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to do what we feel is best for the quality of life for the individuals. And that's, again, where we are, in my opinion, for this structure. And again, we have different departments that the owners can speak with about getting additional support. We encourage you to do that. But as you see, this is just something that is best for everyone that we do this. And hopefully there can be a solution for yourself to address this. But we are going to have to move forward with this property, ladies and gentlemen. So, without any further ado, unless, Councilwoman DeFrances,
No, you asked the same question I did. I wanted to make sure that it was one physical address, but two properties for that physical address. You clarified that, thank you.
okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
So, to close the public hearing, motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilwoman DeFrances to close the public hearing. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0 to close the hearing.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilwoman DeFrances to accept. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Item 9E is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,296. An ordinance amending ordinance number 10,246 regarding film permitting process for the city of Kenner and related fees therefrom.
Motion by Councilwoman DeFrances, second by Councilman Wilmot to open the public hearing. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Council-
motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilwoman DeFrances.
Thank you,
Open.
Council President. I wanted to just give a little bit of information because at some of the past meetings, I know Mr. Morello especially has asked some questions about monetary issues. How much money does the city earn when some of these films do come into the city of Kenner to be filmed? And so I reached out to Tamithia Shaw. Tamithia Shaw at that time was the head of code enforcement, the director, and she and I had worked together very hard on putting a process together to have something tangible for the various companies that wanted to come to film into Kenner. And at that time, I did a lot of the research. I reached out to Shreveport, New Orleans, and all over the state of Louisiana to get as much information as I could and gave it to her. But she was the one who did all the legal work, and I give her the credit for that. And she did, I thought, a very good job of starting with nothing and having a very viable process put in place. Now, this takes it to the next step, but nevertheless, that was the genesis of the process that we have here in Kenner. And Mr. Morello has asked questions to ask us to show that it was a viable process and that the city of Kenner earned quite a bit of money as a result of it. So I spoke to Mr. Morello before the council meeting, and Tamithia provided some of the information for me. Let me give you an example, again, not only to Mr. Morello, but to some of the people in the audience. The city of Kenner leased the parking lot in South Kenner. We received $30,000 for the time that filming took place in that area for the parking lot. There was additional money paid when Scream Queens leased the property right next to the theater. Much more money went, again, into city coffers. I can tell you that even a resident, for example, in North Kenner received $19,000 plus had their lawn redone for 2 days of shooting. The property on Joe Yenny, that was rented out, and again, money came into the city. Keith Conley's office when he was city attorney, that property was also used for filming. So we've had a lot of revenue come in that maybe a lot of people weren't aware that the city was receiving for leasing our properties to the film crews. And I think we were pretty well, we were well paid for allowing some of our properties to be used. So I wanted to put that out there before we move forward on this, that this has been a very good process for the city of Kenner to have something in place that nobody else had at the time, by the way. Jefferson Parish, Tamithia told me, called us to get our copy, and they based theirs on ours. Gretna called Kenner after we did this and had theirs based on ours. So that shows that we were forward-thinking and moving in the right direction. And so I wanted to give a compliment to the city of Kenner, Tamithia, the city attorney's office, because they also worked with code to put the process in place. And Barry Sprague was the one actually put in charge of working directly with the committee that would approve the film coming in, the permitting process for the film coming in to Kenner. So I just wanted to let you and everyone else in the audience know exactly what did transpire and what a good process it was. And as I said, this just takes it to the next level because there were still some other issues that needed to be addressed. So thank you for letting me speak on it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Obviously, we have someone to speak. This is the public hearing. Name and address, Mr. Morello.
Al Morello, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 45 years. I appreciate everything you said, Councilwoman DeFrances. In the past, the people had no way of knowing unless I saw it for myself out there and brought it down here to this council. There was a lot of secrecy surrounding this for years. And now I'm finally glad that we're seeing a little y'all coming forward now and telling us about the money. Now, I want to see two things come from all of this. Number one, I want to make sure that when these companies come here to film these movies in our city, that they're paying everything that's required of them under the law, such as permits, occupational license, or what have you. Then, the second thing I want to see, the mayor gives his report. He tells us about the sales taxes in this city, if they're up or down, Esplanade Mall, you name it. I want to see these figures included in his report when he gives those sales taxes as to how much money was generated off of these permits, these occupational licenses that came into our city's coffers. Every taxpayer in the city of Kenner has a vested interest in whatever goes on in this city. And now I'm finally glad to see that y'all are starting to talk about these film productions in our city and give us some figures. Thank you for the figures, Councilwoman DeFrances, but I'd like for the mayor to include this in his report.
Thank you, Mr. Morella. If I just want to say, Mr. Morella, that you made the comment that it was that we were keeping secrets, or we didn't want.
There was some secrecy surrounding it because, I mean, if there wasn't, Councilman Carroll, I wouldn't have had to come up here and report it every time I physically seen a movie being filmed. Someone on the council would have told us, well, on such and such a day, we took in so much revenues, we had a movie production in our city. Nothing was ever mentioned unless I physically saw it myself and brought it down here and let the people of Kenner know there was a movie being shot in our city, and I wanted to know what the revenues was that our city made off this movie production. As simple as that.
So
that's all I ever wanted.
Mr. Morella, let me. You didn't give me a chance to finish.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, man. I beg your pardon.
Okay, it's accepted. My point was that you said it was something that we were hiding. That was not the case. What I think happened was, for the prior administration, there was no procedure in place to do all of the things that you have mentioned. Now, this administration has taken that to put procedures in place to identify revenues, to identify what can and can't be done. So on behalf of the old administration, they weren't hiding anything. It just wasn't put in place. And any of us was hiding anything, you know. So now we have taken a position, thanks for your support and your constant bringing that up, that now we will do that. So I just wanted clarity for the audience to know there wasn't a secret amount of money hidden somewhere that we weren't telling anybody about, or there weren't any secret procedures in place that we weren't applying. So we are moving in that direction now, sir.
I got any time left, Councilman?
You got 30 seconds.
Okay. First of all, I didn't accuse no one of hiding anything. I said there was secrecy surrounding it because no one told us about it, about the movie productions in the city until now. Now y'all just starting to make some headway because I've been coming down here every time I see one being filmed in our city. I didn't accuse no one of deliberately hiding anything. All I said was if something goes on in our city and it's not discussed by no one on that dais, that means there's secrecy surrounding it. If it's not mentioned, it's secrecy.
Thank you, Mr. Morella.
There's a big difference in that and somebody deliberately hiding something.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, you have the floor.
Yeah, just to answer Mr. Morella's question, not to get into that discussion.
Please don't.
But, Mr. Morella, I would have to probably do it maybe twice a year because sales tax are constant. It's every month. This will not probably be, unfortunately, unless it becomes every month. And look, I'd love to give you that report every month. If it becomes an every month thing that we're doing this, yes, I will. But probably we'll look at, maybe like in December, I'll let you know if we've done anything. And then coming back again next July to give you twice a month what it's bringing in. Sales tax, like I said, is every month. It's a report that I can actually do if we have it in time for the council meeting, depending on how it lands. But if you could work with me with accepting it twice a year, maybe quarterly, we'll see how it starts going. With this might generate some more that we'll be able to do it quite often. Just want you to understand that.
That's my point exactly, Mayor.
Good. That was a lot better discussion I had with him than you did.
Yeah, that's my point exactly. That's all I've ever asked, man, is to let us know how much money is being made off these movie productions in our city.
They won't be every meeting.
Well, I understand that
Okay,
too.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morella. Motion by Councilman DeFranchise, second by Councilman Wilmot to close public hearing. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Councilwoman DeFranchise to close.
Very quickly, Mr. Morella, believe me, see,
Motion.
You're still in a public hearing, we just closed the public hearing.
I closed
Close the
it. We
public
closed the
hearing.
public hearing.
Now we got to vote.
Now we gotta move,
right,
put it on the floor to have.
right.
Okay. Motion by Councilman Carroll, motion by Councilwoman DeFranchise, second by Councilman Wilmot to approve. Councilwoman DeFranchise to close.
Very
Thank you, Council.
quickly, Mr. Morello, secrecy implies a negative, and please understand it was not secrecy. What was clear was that there was no procedure to get that information to you. I called Ms. Shaw and asked her to look at the records on your behalf, and she gave me that information that I could provide to you. So I wanted to make it very clear it was not secrecy. That's a negative, sir, and we don't believe in that. And so again, that was an extra step I took because you had asked questions that we weren't able to provide that answer. But again, now we have a procedure in place. This, as I started when I first moved on this, we were taking the next step to make what we had good even better and more open and transparent. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Motion by Councilwoman DeFranchise, second by Councilman Wilmot to approve. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 9F is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,307, an ordinance repealing and restating ordinances 9325, 10,834, 10,915 to provide for the dedication of funds received from the sale of the city-owned movable and immovable property and providing for related matters. Mr. Chairman and Council, I am requesting a one-meeting deferral.
Move.
Thank you. Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Klein to defer. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0 for one meeting deferral. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. We have none. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution asking the administration to have the Jefferson Parish Mosquito Control Department increase the spraying in the city of Kenner due to the increase of mosquito problems in the city has experienced at the recent Night Against Crime event.
Motion by Councilwoman DeFranchise, second by Councilman Wilmot. Councilwoman DeFranchise.
Thank you very much. First of all, the mayor and I had been working long before the last meeting when the deferral took place. And after the deferral took place, we continued to work with mosquito control with Mr. Pavlich in his office, with Mr. Sam Stein. We worked with Mr. Keith Broussard. And despite the deferral, I've got to say thank you because they did increase spraying. They did aerial spraying. They did ground spraying. They were wonderful. And I want to thank you on behalf of the people of Kenner, and I think for the mayor as well, because we worked together. He on his end, from his office and from my office to work with you. And I think on behalf of the council as well, because I think everyone was very supportive, even though it was deferred. So we wanted, the mayor and I, to give you a chance. I'm going to let the mayor speak first, if you don't mind for a second. But I would like you to be able to tell everyone here all the extra that has been spraying that's been going on, and why we've had the problem, and how we've addressed it, and how successful we have been. Mayor?
Excuse me, Councilwoman DeFranchise.
If it would be okay. Let me finish. Mayor, if I'm going to ask Councilman, our council chairman, for permission to let you speak. You didn't let me finish.
Okay. Mayor, Councilwoman DeFranchise has given you the permission to
I gotta
speak
finish
now.
my sentence.
I appreciate it from both of y'all. True, working with your office, you working with my office, but let's also add Councilman Rizzuta at the
Yes.
time of Night Out Against Crime, and for me, for the last 2 days, working with Councilman Impostata in the now the District 4 office to make sure that this is being taken care of, plus mosquito control, the numerous conversations you've had with mosquito control, and also myself. But I want to recognize those two council people in the District 4 office of the
appreciate
parish,
you're right.
because we can make those requests, but obviously this is a contract through the parish. So the parish councilman should be the one involved in this. Not saying that you all shouldn't, nor should I, but our request should go to the parish councilman to make sure that that gets taken care of. So I appreciate their hard work along with Councilman DeFrancis.
And thank you
And
for
of course, you,
mentioning it,
mosquito
Mayor.
control.
And thank you for mentioning
Thank
that,
you.
Mayor. I should have done that too.
Thank you. Sir, name and address, please.
Steve Pavlovich, 1000 LaBarre Road, Metairie, Louisiana, 70001. I'm the chief entomologist with Mosquito Control Services.
Thank you, sir.
And I wanted to echo both Councilwoman DeFrancis and Mayor Zahn in that this was a multifaceted effort, but it was also multifaceted with the communication between the mayor's office, the council people here, as well as Councilman Impostata and Jack Rizzuto's office, and multiple individuals within these offices. And it was constant back and forth. And the reason that we had a problem, and to back up as far as even September, we had the event of Nate come in early September. That was a rain event. It did provide us a large amount of rain that flooded a lot of our coastal marsh breeding sites. The mosquito population rose considerably during that time towards the end of September. This was not the issue most recently. At that point, mosquito spraying was increased. We did an aerial application, I believe 28th of September, to combat that. The mosquito population then decreased considerably. On the heels of that, we had another storm come through, and that was Hurricane Nate. Hurricane Nate really was not a rain event, so you wouldn't think that it would cause a big mosquito problem, but what it did, it was a high tide at that time, and we had a large storm surge. So as a result of the large storm surge and the high tide, they compounded to flood a lot of these sites again, and some sites that hadn't been flooded all year because of the amount of water that was in the coastal marsh area. As a result, about 7 to 10 days later, the mosquito population more than doubled. That was roughly about the time that the Night Out Against Crime was happening. We had run an aerial about 2 days or 3 days before, the weekend before the Night Out Against Crime. It knocked them down considerably, but still there was a large population. We at that point were running trucks. The trucks had increased both in September and October, but in October specifically, we were putting at that time about 3 to 4 trucks a night in Kenner alone. So in comparison to a normal time of year, being August, September had an increase of about 1.5 times, and October up until this point, and take into consideration that there were about 5 to 6 days that there was no spraying happening because of wind conditions prior to the storm. So there was about 26 or 27,000 acres of activity just on the ground application with those trucks during October, and then 2 applications with the airplane covering around 5,000 acres each. The last one was being done last Friday, which was prior to the Halloween holiday, and it was very effective at that time. We also had the fortune of having colder weather temperatures during the weekend, which helped, and then we brought the 4 trucks back into Kenner the day before Halloween, and I think it was a pretty big success in compared to the Night Out Against Crime where mosquitoes were present.
Well, I'm going to let Councilman Carroll had some questions as well, so.
Sure.
Councilman Carroll, I didn't give up my time yet, but I'm going to yield my time to you at this point.
Okay. Mr. Poplovich, we have been given a printout of this, and do you have a copy of this?
I do not, but that's okay.
Madam Clerk, could you give Mr. Poplovich a copy? And just to be able to tell, he has one too, exactly what this is and in a short couple
So
of seconds.
somewhere along the process, and I guess around the 25th or thereabouts, the mayor's office had requested a scheduled spraying of where we would be that particular evening. So these, for example, the first sheet that you have there, these were the areas that we were addressing that particular night. We had done areas prior to that, and you can see that over the 25th, 26th, 27th, these areas were where the 3 or 4 trucks were addressing those particular evenings.
Yes, and for the audience who's not privy to this information, it pretty much covers the entire city from the lake to the airport and beyond.
Yes, during this time period, certain areas got additional treatments. And the reason, for example, the area just above, I think in District 1, just above the airport, like near that Aberdeen and Loyola, where the horse stables are there, we have surveillance traps throughout the city of Kenner. And those areas, Wood Lake was another area going down to Grand Lake, those areas, as well as northern Chateau. Those were the hardest hit areas by the mosquito population. So we covered the entire city of Kenner prior to the Halloween holiday. However, some of these areas during that 3-week span that we actually did spraying, and we were able to do more spraying than we did the previous month in a 3-week span with all those extra vehicles. Those areas that were hardest hit received additional applications.
Thank you. Councilwoman DeFrances, to close.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If she's closing, I had pressed the button to speak.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Just a question on the sheet that you just got. As I was reviewing it, I have a little concern. Is I see you putting it by whoever did that breakdown.
It's okay?
Mr. Mayor, you have the floor.
Actually, my assistant, Michelle, took that and took the information that you gave us, Steve, and put it into an easy format so that the council could have it.
Well, and I appreciate that, but I just wanted for
It's not
clarification.
directly from him, it's,
No, that's fine.
you know,
Okay, well, that's what I make sure.
it's his
'cause
report.
For clarification, Highway Park can run from South Kenner to North Kenner.
Right.
And I want some more definite breakout.
Okay,
To
okay.
know
Well, we can
what
do that for you.
Highway Park
We did
is.
that.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Highway Park is exactly, but.
If you call the office tomorrow.
Yeah,
Michelle will
what they
give you the breakdown.
typically had done during this is we, would be in an area, and we pulled up the Kenner map that was on the website, and basically those areas that we were spraying in the general areas, and I don't know which Highway Park, for example, on the second page is.
And I would just suggest that just some geographic boundary would be helpful, just to say you sprayed between airline and veterans, between
Okay.
this and that. That's all. I mean, that.
Thank you,
would just help.
Councilman. Councilman Reyno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the area on the northeast side of Kenner, was that also addressed? Because I didn't see that.
All the areas, you're talking about by the casino?
Casino
Yeah,
and
that-
everything
all
from
those
the
areas were
casino
addressed.
to parish line.
From the casino to the parish line, those areas were sprayed as well. What I was just pointing out is the areas that had the highest mosquito population were those areas just north of the airport, the Grand Lake area up to like Wood Lake, and then across Chateau, but Chateau along the top portion of the parish. And basically they were coming in from the area of the Batcher and the St. Charles Parish Marsh. But we did spray all those areas.
And the aerial spraying was done across the entire city.
The aerial spraying was done almost to David Drive from the St. Charles Parish line.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Segura, you had asked for a specific breakdown from Mr. Poplovich, or?
Well, I wasn't sure where it came from, so if he was giving it to the mayor's office, I was just trying to have it a little bit more detailed, because like I said, Highway Park covers both Councilman Reyno's and my district, so just saying Highway Park. But I do know, as I text after last meeting, they were spraying at my house 2 blocks from here when we left. So I do know you sprayed in this area, but just for clarification, wanted to know that we get a.
Right, and Mr. Poplovich, if you can provide us, Ms. Fauché would obviously give you the information for specific lines for the city.
Sure.
That will be able to help you make up the
Yeah,
overall.
ours aren't actually broken down necessarily that way. So this particular area, Keith Broussard, one of our biologists, actually would break it from Williams to David, from Vintage North, or whatever it may have been.
Right, if you can call the mayor's office, they will be able to give you the specifics on that.
Yes.
Councilwoman DeFrances.
Thank you, Council President. Because of the effort of Mr. Pavlich and Mr. Keith Broussard and Mr. Sam Stein, as I said after the last meeting, and the mayor's office and my office working together, it really is now a moot point that we have done what we really requested at the last meeting, thanks to all of you. And I want to personally thank you in your office for working so hard with us, and the mayor for working together. We were able to accomplish this. So there's no point in going on with this. So I'm going to ask for an indefinite deferral. We can't just ask for, make it a moot point and remove it. So I'm going to ask for an indefinite deferral because we've already addressed the situation. And thank you to the mayor's office, to your office, and to the rest of the council.
So, motion by Councilwoman DeFrances for an indefinite deferral, second by Councilman Segura. Well, hold on. Mr. Mayor.
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you working with the office, and this is how we get these things done. And of course, to those two council people again, and also Mr. Steve. So I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Populist. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman DeFrances. So, motion by Councilwoman DeFrances for an indefinite deferral, second by Councilman Segura. Council, please vote. Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Item 13B is a resolution appointing the members of the Alcoholic Beverage Permit Review Committee.
Motion by Councilwoman DeFrances, second by Councilman Klein. But before we vote on this, Madam Clerk, could you identify the individuals who will be serving in this capacity, please?
Yes, sir. For at-large Division A, it would be Frank Campagno. For at-large Division B, it would be Jerry Godfrey, Sr. For District 1, it would be Mark Johnson. For District 2, it would be Jerry Matisse. For District 3, Edwin C. Hosley, Jr. District 4 would be Ashley B. Jacobson. And actually, for District 5, we've received an amendment tonight to amend it from Mr. Brian Brennan to reflect Miss Roy Lynn Hewlin. If I could get a motion and a second to amend the legislation.
So, motion by Councilman Wilmot, second by Councilwoman DeFrances to amend. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0 to amend. Back to your original motion.
Motion by Councilwoman DeFrances, second by Councilman Klein to approve. Council, please vote.
Can I,
Motion passes.
since I'm next to speak?
We already voted on it.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right.
Item 13C is a resolution calling a public hearing on December 7, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 3101 Jasper Street in Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
I want to say something nice.
13C, motion and second.
13C, sorry about that. Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Segura. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 12,305, an ordinance approving the utilization of Jefferson Parish contract number 55-16828 with Trantex Transportation Products of Texas Incorporated to provide thermoplastic pavement markings on an as-needed basis in an amount not to exceed $50,000 annually for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilman Wilmot, second by Councilman Carroll to approve. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 12,306, an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Bliss Products and Services Incorporated to furnish and install new playground equipment and pour in place at AP Clay in accordance with seal bid number 17-6405 in an amount not to exceed $37,270.82 for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilwoman DeFrances to approve. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Item 15C is a resolution approving change order number 1, final, to the contract with Godfried Contracting LLC dated July 25, 2016, regarding the Kenner City Park, Wentwood Skateboard Park, Wood Lake Playground improvements for a net increase of $42,590.96 to the contract amount, resulting in a total contract amount of $2,141,436.96 with an addition of 146 calendar days to the contract time, and to accept the contract as complete for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilman Klein, second by Councilman Segura to approve. Council, please vote. Aye. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15D is a resolution approving change order number 1, final to the agreement with New Arrow Industries Incorporated, doing business as Arrow Fence and Supply, dated June 23, 2017, regarding furnish and install Ameristar Echelon Plus Puppy Panel Ornamental Aluminum Fence System or equal at the Kenner City Dog Park for a net increase of $19,465 to the agreement amount, resulting in a total agreement amount of $68,715, and to accept the agreement as complete for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilman Wilmot, second by Councilman Klein to approve. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15E is a resolution accepting as complete the agreement with Ashley Ross Construction, LLC, dated May 31st, 2017, in the amount of $58,000 for the new bulletproofing construction at the Kenner Police Department.
Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilwoman DeFrances to approve.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A will be removed from the agenda tonight. Item 16B is an ordinance creating the Department of Kenner Television in accordance with Section 4.32 of the City Charter and further designating the functions of the department and department head. Item 16C is an ordinance authorizing the purchase of microcomputers, peripherals, software, and related services from Microsoft Corporation under the State of Louisiana contract number 4400008025, master agreement number NWNC-119, on an as-needed basis not to exceed $150,000 per year for all city departments, including the Kenner Police Department. Item 16D is an ordinance approving an agreement between the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development and the City of Kenner for pedestrian improvements and additional sidewalks in the vicinity of the Kenner City Park under the Safe Routes to School Grant and the Safe Routes to Public Places Grant, state project number H.012236.6, federal project number H.012236. Item 16E is an ordinance accepting federal grant funding with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for the Kenner Levee Trailhead expansion at LaSalle's Landing. Item 17 is reports from the council and/or special committees.
Councilman Moreno, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Monday, they had a special meeting of the council that I was unable to attend, and there was some comments made regarding me being served, a service being made to me for that meeting, and I just wanted to clarify something. In Section 2.20 of our city charter, special meetings of the council may be called by the mayor, the president, or by the clerk at the request of 4 council members. In Section 2.21, it talks about public notice. It talks about service. And it says that must be served by a police officer of the municipality on the mayor or a majority of the entire authorized membership of the council. It doesn't say that everybody has to be served. It doesn't say that you have to sign a waiver of service. I happen to be out of town on vacation that week, and KPD sent out, or at the request of the administration, sent out a police officer to serve me in regards to that meeting. While I did say whatever you need to do for service, I knew that I didn't need to be served because all you have to serve is a majority of the council. It's in the charter. The other thing is, it was well known that I was coming back on Sunday. It also says the notice may be served either personally or at the domicile of the official to be notified, and shall be served in either event at least 12 hours prior to the hour fixed for the call of the special meeting. So it wasn't necessary to send a police officer there, although I heard that I was criticized for doing that. I just wanted to clarify that point. It's my only thing that I wanted to say. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk, I don't see any more lights. Anybody have anything else? Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Item 18 is new business. Item 18A was taken earlier in the meeting. Item 19 is unfinished business and a motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. We have none. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Thank you. We have a few. Mr. Fred Miller. Name and address, Mr. Miller.
Fred Miller, 4005 Delaware. Mr. Mayor, President Council, other council members, I'd like to commend you all on the hard work the committee for the boats have done on resolving that situation. What I have read from Mr. Segur was great. It looks like that would be something everybody would go along with. We had, 37 people here last night? And all of them were in agreement that that would be good for everybody. And I just want, I know they worked real hard on it, and y'all took the complaints of the people to heart and did something about it. And I really appreciate that, and I want to thank y'all for that. And I was going to welcome the new councilman, but she left. But thank y'all. That's all I got to say today.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I also would like to thank the committee for all their hard work on that. And, you know, it started with the residents, yourself, Mr. Miller, and all of the people who are part of boat owners to bring it to our attention, to address it. And normally when you have an opportunity to communicate and to address things, it works out pretty good. So thank you, sir. Councilman Wilmot, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that ordinance isn't passed yet, but it is a work in progress, and I think we've gotten a lot of headway. We've already had approximately 7 meetings throughout the city, and we still have 1 more to go. So it's coming along well, I think, and we're trying to make it so it's palatable to everyone we can. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for working hard on that committee. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Klein, you have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. I want to mirror what Councilman Wilmot said, that this is a work in progress. We've been working on it now for several months. We've had 7 meetings. We have 1 more meeting scheduled this month, and then we can take it to our fellow members to see what we can work out on a compromise basis. So we're all working very hard. I was in charge of the committee, or in charge of the committee, along with Michael Segura's on the committee and Tom Wilmot. So we'll work very hard on it. We've talked to lots and lots of resident people with boats, without boats, and we're trying to come to a compromise that everyone can be satisfied. So thank you for your positive comments.
Well, if y'all go along with that when it all comes up to the vote, that would be really great. And I know all of y'all have worked on it and had problems with it, and I thank you all for that also.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Moreno, your light is from the old one? Or? It's old one. Okay. Name and address.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 45 years. I got some comments. I want to direct these comments to the mayor. These are the same comments that I directed to the mayor back in July. And Mayor Zion was elected on December the 3rd in a special runoff election, and he could have took the seat immediately because it was a special election, but he stayed on the parish council. And at the January 11th meeting of the parish council, Mayor Zion introduced a resolution to settle a lawsuit for Greg Buson, which was his campaign manager at the time. The resolution called for putting $120,000 for legal fees of our money in Mr. Buson's hands, and an undisclosed amount on top of that for damages that, through his own admission, his company did not suffer. Back on June the 22nd, after some opposition by myself to the council at that meeting, the council wisely rejected that resolution 5-2. On June the 22nd, that lawsuit was dismissed by a federal judge. Okay. I wanted to get Mayor Zahn's thoughts on that then, and he told me that it was premature. He didn't know what he would come back with, but he could come back. He did come back. He filed an appeal. And once again, costing the taxpayers of Jefferson Parish more money on top of the $486,000 he cost us for the original lawsuit. Now, I want to pose the same question to you, Mayor Zahn. The appeal has been dismissed by a federal judge. And I want to know now your thoughts, like I wanted to know back in July. I want to know your thoughts now on the appeal being dismissed. But before you answer, I want to say this. As long as Mr. Buson persists on litigation against the people of Jefferson Parish, I am going to keep this narrative going until two things happen. Until he no longer has any more avenues left to sue the people of Jefferson Parish, and all of the money that he's cost the taxpayers of Jefferson Parish is recovered. I've already put the parish council on notice. I want that money recovered, every penny of it, and put back into the parish's general fund. Now, in closing, Veterans Day coming up. I want to say God bless all of our veterans, those who served, those who are currently serving, and may God bring them all home safe to their family, especially the ones that are serving abroad. And I want to pay a special tribute to the Vietnam veterans. Too many times I hear that it's the only war that the United States has ever lost. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's the corrupt policies out of Washington, D.C.
20
back
seconds,
then
Mr. Murillo.
who handed Saigon to Hanoi. Anybody got any comments, any questions?
I have a comment. Hold on a second. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I do want to be clear that the information that you are requesting the mayor happened at the parish council. This is not the city of Kenner, which is part of Jefferson Parish, but you're asking to reflect on something that happened at the Jefferson Parish. Am I understanding that correctly?
All I'm asking for is his thoughts on it, Councilman Carroll. That's all. I'm not asking for any information. I'm asking what his thoughts are, since he made an attempt to settle this lawsuit at the cost of the taxpayers of unincorporated Jefferson Parish. I don't care where you live at in this parish. You are taxpayers in this parish. And all I wanted to know, since it was dismissed the second time, what is his thoughts on it? That's all I'm asking.
Mr. Morella, I disagree with you because this is the city of Kenner. This is not the Jefferson Parish Council. So our business relates to the city of Kenner. That is something, if you go to the parish and ask that question, you are rightly so. If the mayor chooses to answer that, that's up to him. But I would say this is the city of Kenner. This is not Jefferson Parish.
Oh, I understand that.
Can I finish, Mr. Morella?
Go ahead.
This is the city of Kenner. You're asking a question about what happened in Jefferson Parish. The mayor he can answer if he would like. I would say we should stick to the city of Kenner business. If he wants to address it, that's fine.
Whatever you want.
I would say no,
either way.
not to address it, because this is not the parish. Let me finish. This is not the parish. I'm gonna give you 30 seconds. I would prefer the mayor not to answer it. If you want to answer it after, that's fine. I would like to stick to the city of Kenner, because that's what we're talking about today. So 30 seconds to close, Mr.
We are sticking to the city of Kenner. Councilman Carroll, he was the duly elected mayor of the city of Kenner, and he chose to stay on the parish council at the time. Now he's the mayor of Kenner. I'm not asking him any questions. I'm asking him what is his thoughts on this. Since he attempted to introduce a resolution and attempted to settle a lawsuit, and it's been dismissed twice by a federal judge. I'm just asking his thoughts on it. That's all.
So
if he don't want to answer it, fine. He don't have to give me his thoughts if he doesn't have any.
But you can appreciate this was done in the parish, a resolution, correct?
He was the duly elected mayor of Kenner when he did this, back on January 11th, even though he was still on the parish council. He was our duly elected mayor.
Okay, so I understand. Mr. Zahn, would you like to address it?
Council Chairman, I appreciate your defense. And I do agree with you, but let me just say this. I guess I can answer it without going into parish business. When I did choose to stay in, by the way, I wasn't elected on December 3rd. It was on December 10th of that year. When I chose to say the people of Kenner benefited by me staying, the people of unincorporated District 4 benefited. We did police cameras for the city of Kenner. We did police cameras for Jefferson Parish. We did things for Kenner City Park and Laketown. I did things for Lafayette Park. And the list goes on. And I believe all of you all have seen what was done as a District 4 councilman, which will continue with the newly elected District 4 councilman, which I find odd this is coming up right now, but that's okay. I did it then. I stayed because there were things to address for the city of Kenner and for those residents. One is a $400,000 stage that will be built in District 3 in Laketown. Gates that went up at Lafayette Park at the same time. But for the people of Kenner, I think it was important that I stay to make sure that, and I'm talking about Kenner things, so I'm sticking with what you want. I stayed to benefit the people of Kenner, and I will stand behind that. As for anything that I put up while I was still there, I'm gonna let the people of Kenner do the math. I think Mr. Morella quoted $500,000, close to $500,000 of what the people of Jefferson Parish have paid now. I'll take my 120, 130 settlement any day that I wanted to give to Greg Buson. So I think the people of Kenner understand that. I'm not going to go into legislation. I think I stayed away from it like you asked, but I appreciate your defense.
Thank you. And it's not a personal defense. It's the fact that we are the city of Kenner. We should be addressing the city of Kenner business. And that's just my simple opinion. Mr. Morrell, I'll give you 30 seconds to close, sir.
Okay. I appreciate the mayor stating everything that he did while he stayed behind. But he left out the main thing, the main topic that I just mentioned, the $120,000 for legal fees and an undetermined amount on top of that for damages that the man's company did not suffer. That's all I asked is his thoughts. If he didn't have any, he didn't have to give me any. All I asked was his thoughts.
Thank you, sir.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pastor Jackie Crockerham Brown. Name and address, please.
Yes. Good evening. Pastor Jacqueline Cockerham Brown, 2610 Decatur Street, Unit A, Kenner, Louisiana. I would first like to say to Mr. Charles Pruitt and Mr. Thomas Wooderson, I don't see them here, but also to the council, to thank them for coming by today and sharing with me that they are responding to the promise of a temporary wall at Decatur Street. So I had an opportunity, along with some of the other neighbors, to see some of the construction equipment that is going down. It is temporary until their job is done, and we know something else is going to transpire later. But I just wanted to thank those two gentlemen for following up on their promise. And just to say to the constituents there that when the people work together, the city works. So we can get a lot done when we work together. The other thing is just a little piggybacking off of Mr. Al's statement about the Vietnam vets. I had, we know Veteran Day is coming up, but I had an opportunity to look at one of the films and how the Vietnam vets have actually been left out, and I hope the city doesn't do that. But I had a fiance who suffered greatly in Vietnam. My first husband and both of my brothers were in Vietnam at the same time. And one of my classmates was murdered, was killed in Vietnam, and two of them came back maimed. But just to keep them in mind, they went on a draft when we were just starting our marriage together. And things didn't work out at that time because of the situation, but let's not forget them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown, and thanks for all of your family members and friends' support to the United States of America. And just for clarity for everyone, Mr. Pruitt and Mr. Wooderson are the gentlemen who are part of the major contractors for the airport North Terminal that's being built.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions. All right, Ray. Thank you.
Mr. Johnny Alexander, or name and address, Mr. Alexander.
Johnny Alexander, 2623 Aberdeen Street, Kenner, Louisiana. We're really having a big problem all of a sudden with the airport. There's construction going on at nighttime. It's only running the machine at nighttime. I can't understand that. The people in the neighborhood can't sleep, and it's really getting ridiculous. When they first started up, it was quiet. I don't know what happened this last week or so. It done got ridiculous. I heard they say they're building a little privacy temporary wall or whatever, but that's right there at Decatur Street. What's gonna happen to the people that's blocks past that can hear all that? We can hear that blocks away. I mean, it's real bad at night. People can't even sleep at night. I'm a construction worker. I've been trying to deal with it. This is the first time I've complained about it, because we can't sleep at night. And I hope when they do start up again and they get this privacy wall, that somebody out in this council can come out there on that corner at 27 Aberdeen Street at night and approve of the sound, if it's okay or not. That's all we can ask. Maybe we can work with y'all with that. Somebody need to come out there at night when they start up again and see how loud the noise is. It's really ridiculous. People can't go to work the next day and be in function. It's really ridiculous.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walter, if you hold on a second.
Yes, sir. In fact, what Ms. Cockerham had just left, that's what she was talking about.
I was out there today. I seen it.
Yeah, she's been pretty faithful here at the meetings for the last 2 or 3 meetings to talk about the noise. We met with the airport people this morning, and they really want to work this out. The reason the airport's going 24 hours now is it has something to do with the cement, and they have that plant situated right there that y'all can probably see from the front of your house. And at night, I don't think it's so much the plant that's causing the noise. I think it's the truck.
It's the plant through some kind of machine at night. It just woo, every so often it's making so loud of a noise that you can hear it.
And then when you have the trucks and they.
And the truck, the
they make
tailgates, you hear the tailgates bamming all night long and everything else. You know, it's really ridiculous. It's really, people got to go to work.
What
You
their
know.
plan is, they're going to erect a 12-foot wall with a 2-inch sound barrier. I don't know what it is.
I understand it, but
they're gonna hang it on.
that's just going along the little block by Decatur Street. What's going to happen when they open in wide open areas and get to 27th Street? And how they going to block the street off with it so the sound won't go down 27 and all that?
If it works for Decatur Street, then
Then they're
we'll
gonna
go
move
back to
on.
the airport, we'll make them continue that wall as far as we gotta go.
Another problem I have too, I've camped there a long time ago about the trucks coming down Aberdeen Street. It's really another problem. They're speeding, shaking the house up, and it's just 5 companies back there. And they done built a new bridge back there for the trucks to go around, and I don't see why y'all can't just have 5 companies just start making their trucks go around the truck route. Because they come through at 5 o'clock in the morning, and especially in the evening time, and they're going in, they're just shaking the house up. It's ridiculous. All the 18-wheelers, and it's on the street as they come down, the residential neighborhood, even the people going to the airport with the airplane fuel and all that, that's a hazard going down our city streets, and resident like that. But I just hope something can be done about it.
No, Mr. Walter, did you put your sign up again to speak, to address that?
But, I mean, the chief's not here. We can possibly deal some of this with Kenner Police and get traffic back there. The agreement we had with the airport was that their deliveries would all go down Bainbridge Street or would go all the way down to Crestview.
They don't do
And they come back that bridge you're talking about.
They're not
back
doing
to
it.
that.
They're not doing it. Trust me.
And,
they're not.
and look, that'd be real easy to handle that. You know, we can put get a unit situated right there at Aberdeen and the canal and eliminate it. And what I'll do is I'll contact the chief myself and request that.
Because it's just 1, 2, 3 block street. Why can't it just, it's residential. They can go around. They make the airport employees go around. They can go around their cars. Why can't the 18-wheelers go around? They come through that middle early in the morning, making noise late at night, and then they disregarding this 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. They really are.
Yeah.
And I done called many times. I know you know, and the mayor know. I done contacted y'all many times about this problem, and it's really getting ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for calling. Thank you for coming. For the first part of your challenges that you're having with the noise. We actually had a meeting today, like Mr. Walter said. There will be a resolution within the next couple of weeks, one way or another. If it means extension or if it means some other options that we have, we will be addressing that. As far as the chief isn't here, but now that we know Mr. Waters had heard your complaints, so we obviously going to be able to prescribe a solution to this also, particularly if it's a no-truck route and trucks are coming down. So
When they come out, they get to 27th Street, they got to go right or left, and there's a no truck route going to that street because a deaf child around there, and they disregard that. The old lady around there, she have problems. And when they got to make a right going the other way. It's not. It's going to the neighborhood. Right. There's no truck routes.
So thank you. I'm glad you came. I'll speak to Mr. Walters today. Well, Rick, you're back.
In fact, Council, let me just say this. The citizens are going to come first. I mean, the airport, that's New Orleans. And I think it was pretty clear by the administration's meeting with the councilman and the airport that if this doesn't work, then they're out, you know. And I'm not even sure that all those trucks are from the airport because you have that's an industrial area, you have a lot of other trucks that come back there.
No, it's just 5 companies back there. They have trucks that they stage back there. But the airport do have deliveries coming there. It's not their dump trucks. Their dump trucks do go around now. It's just some of the delivery trucks that are coming there. Some fuel, airplane fuel, or I can see the truck delivering all kinds of stuff going back there, but they're going to the airport.
Right. So, I mean, some of that, like I said, it's going to be law enforcement, but the city will take care of our end.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Councilman Segura, you have the floor, sir.
No, I just wanted to add, and I don't want it to sound, sir, Ms. Cockerham Brown, I know we've told her this many times. Please call that hotline number. Even though I know you had issues, but still, the more that calls, it's documented. That gives us, the administration, Councilman Carroll, you know, the means to point it out to these contractors that there is a problem when it's happening. And I don't know, I'm not too far from there, and I hear maybe not quite as loud as you do. I'm just a few blocks away too. But I just strongly suggest, if you can, call the hotline too, because it puts a notice. And Ms. Fauché, Mr. Pruitt is still the one monitoring that. Is he providing some report to you on the amount of calls or who's calling?
Well, we met with him today, and he provided the most recent update of how many calls there had been. There are not as many calls as you would expect, but I think we know from talking to Ms. Brown there were times where she called, no one answered. So if no one answers, there's really no way to document. I mean, she knows she called, and she can establish it. But what happened in today's meeting was the revision, basically the review of their current schedule and the identification of the specific noise. What's happening is they're bringing in concrete from New Orleans East, and then that is being put into this machine. And so the noises they're hearing are those rocks going against the metal. Right. The sound barrier, the location of the sound barrier is not just to block Decatur, it's basically to block the machine itself. And so it should, in fact, deflect the sound from that particular machine wherever it goes. So that project will be up and complete in 2 weeks. And at that point, then we've told the airport if that doesn't work, then we're going to find another solution. But right now, if that works, we're hoping that that works, and that will address the particular sound coming from the particular machine that is the thing that's really bothering everybody right now.
Okay. But as I appreciate from past conversation, this hotline number went to Mr. Pruitt's cell phone.
Yes.
Even though he doesn't answer, there's a record of that call coming in. He should be supplying us with a log that says he got a call, even though he didn't answer it.
Well, today he told us, I think he had received 3 calls this week, and 2 were unrelated to sound. They had to do with being able to get jobs. So his commentaries, he's not really getting noise complaints.
Well, but again, I could relate it, but it's a cell phone. It's like any phone. It has an answer or a voice message machine. If he doesn't answer it, it should be going to voicemail. He's got a record.
He's saying he doesn't get any calls.
Ms. Brown?
I know he doesn't answer them.
I got that. But you're calling, correct?
For him to answer my call, the first one I made while I was here, before we left the chamber. I got a call about 2 weeks later, after I had communication with Ms. Fauché.
Okay. Well, I think the point here I'm trying to get across is we need to emphasize to Mr. Pruitt, I don't want to hear these folks are calling, not getting an answer. He can put it on an answer, let his answer machine pick it up, but then he should be reporting back that he's getting these calls because his phone does log them in.
The answer machine picks it up.
Then he should be reporting that call.
Get it open, but you don't get a return call.
I can't answer for that. I just want to get a log on the calls that y'all are making, and that's why I'm just emphasizing, please call as often as you like when there's a problem.
Councilman Wilmot, you have the floor, sir.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Foshee, would by chance, would you have that number, that hotline number again? 444-6001. Okay, that's important to get that number out there again to the public so they know that that is the hotline for the noise abatement issues that are going on north of the airport. Also, any future meetings on this issue, please include me. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks.
And Councilman Segura, as far as the documentation, we can request that. We can ask him to provide us a log of calls, whether he spoke to the person or not. Like you said, it's going to document it. So we will ask for that documentation so we can have a sense also of who's been called.
That was my point, and Councilman Reno just explained something too. If we're not getting perhaps the, maybe the accuracy that Mr. Pruitt is providing based upon what we're hearing from citizens, we may want to insist that they put this to an answer machine, or answering service. So the answering service can then give us a log of calls coming in and whatever messages were left, not Mr. Pruitt.
Right. That makes a lot of sense also. Thank you. Councilman Reno.
I was just going to mention that because we were talking.
Okay.
Had a side conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Donna Reno. Name and address, Ms. Reno.
Donna Reno, 42 Emile Avenue. As I promised before, and these antics could end, I've had over 1,300 people see that I was not lying on a video. I played the whole tape for people to hear about the conversation that I had with Miss, I don't even remember her name now, with the city attorney, Lee Roussel. And I played the whole tape. And I've gotten responses, and I've gotten calls, and I've gotten emails, and I've been told to keep it up because I proved that I was being called a liar wrongfully. So I am here again to request a written and public apology for being called a liar by the mayor.
So we have your request,
Okay.
Ms. Reno.
Now, on top of that, I had that same complaint about the noise. I have never had the pictures on my wall in my bedroom shake before. And last night at 12:30, they were shaking, and it sounded like a tornado or a train was really close by. And there's no doubt in my mind that it was coming from the area of where the airport thing is. It would stop for a while, and then it would start again. And I literally heard my pictures on my walls doing this. And so I needed that number as well, which I only got the first part of it. So Pastor? Can you give that number again, because I only got part of it?
504.
Yes, ma'am?
444-6001.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and to finish, the annex could stop as soon as that happens.
Thank you, Ms. Reno. So I do not see any more motion to close.
Council President?
Oh,
Can I address
Yes.
Ms. Reno, please?
Attorney Roussel, please.
Yes, ma'am, I am. Ms. Reno, your antics are consuming city resources that could be better spent serving the citizens of Kenner. The issue is not anything that I said to you when you nefariously recorded me. The real scandal here, ma'am, is that you used your husband's position to gain access to my private office, the city attorney's.
That is a lie.
Don't interrupt me, ma'am.
No.
Hold on.
You don't
Attorney
talk to me that
Roussel,
way.
this isn't going anywhere. So can
You're
we
not
just?
going to talk to me that way.
Now,
Council President, may I please continue? She is
No,
if
you're
you're
not
not-
going to talk to me
badgering
that
me.
way.
If I can just get out my statement, please, Council President.
No, because you weren't the one calling me a liar.
I don't want the back and
I don't
forth.
have to listen to you. You work for the city of Kenner.
Attorney Roussel, Ms. Randall, that's it. Motion to
Thank you.
close. Second.
Speak to,
Let's go.
good, speak to you.